Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is Sahara with Access Point. Today, we have a very special guest returning for a part two, Suad Abdel Aziz with Decolonize Sudan. As many of us know, Sudan is experiencing the largest humanitarian crisis, as well as an active genocide that has been internationally reported on and been called a genocide as well. Saad, thank you so much for joining me. I just kind of wanted to begin with I know that the work that you are in is movement work, and specifically within the humanitarian law space. And I'm a writer, and I'm a huge fan of other writers, especially being able to give words to moments like this. So if you could maybe just start with some of your spoken word that you have written during this time, and then maybe continue that with a bit of a update on what has transpired since we last spoke in July.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sahara, for having me. It's always a healing space to be in community with you and speaking with you. So thank you always for making this space and this time for me. Um, so I'm a human rights lawyer, and for the entirety of my life, I've wrestled with this question of what are human rights, and it got me within the past month or so, um, experiencing a lot of trauma. It got me thinking about this question once more, and reflecting on my experiences in talking to victims of human rights abuses. And so I just jot down a little my thoughts on my phone, and I would love to share that with you now. So, what are human rights? I asked the Palestinian father who had just seen his 9-year-old son shot in the head by a settler reply, human rights? What human rights? The Sudanese farmer displaced on the other side of the Nile River Delta adds, those are not for us. Many people ask me how I work as a human rights lawyer within a global system that does not value the human life, a system that has failed humanity in its promise of never again, a system controlled by the very entities committing the majority of the world's atrocities. And as we've seen within the past 2 years, both in Palestine and in Sudan, a system that cannot, at a basic level, stop genocide from happening, let alone hold perpetrators accountable after the fact. When asked this, I remember the young Cuban girl beaming at me, saying, the human right to be happy. The vision of what human rights could be lies in her bright eyes. Human rights are an unrealized dream.
Hmm. An unrealized dream. Thank you. You know, the work that you do is admittedly intersectional, right? And even as you read that, you evoked all the intersectionality right there, right? That you don't have to be uh, in one part of the world, that there is a shared existence in the oppression. So thank you. Thank you so much for reading that. Um, Tell me about a little bit about what's been going on, and specifically in Al Fashir, and yeah, the atrocities and the numbers, the death toll.
Yeah. So since we last spoke, Sahra, the RSF militia in committing genocide in Sudan for the past 2.5 years, they have followed up on their plan, their stated plan of taking over the North Darfur, the capital of North Darfur, El Fashir. And they stated to the world 1 year ago that they would take over El Fashir and that the people would be removed from the land and annihilated. So Sudanese people have been screaming, have been warning based on these statements for over a year now of what will happen if the RSF is not stopped. And now it is too late for the people of Al Fashir. The RSF last week entered Al Fashir. They took over the military base in Al Fashir, and they proceeded to annihilate all of the living souls in Al Fashir. The Yale Humanitarian Research Lab 2 days ago reported that based on satellite imagery, in which you can see the bodies within the satellites, you can see it from space, the genocide. They reported that there is not a living soul that is moving in Al Fashir, and that this indicates that all of the population of 250,000 people in Al Fashir have been killed, captured, or taken elsewhere. And the movement suggests, the lack of movement suggests the first two options. And so there's no words to describe the complete annihilation, the complete terror that the RSF is deploying in Darfur, and that it has stated that it will deploy throughout all of Sudan. It will continue until every last soul is annihilated, until it is stopped. And they've made it clear a year ago, and they've made it clear now. That's the situation that we face now, is complete annihilation.
Can you say a little bit about the actors, the many actors that are involved here, to kind of, if you could paint the picture, because a lot of the narrative around this war, this genocide, has been false, and the misinformation continues to grow. You know that it's a proxy war. Many of us know that. But if you could just unpack a little bit of like, well, what the hell do they want from Darfur? Like, what do they want? Who are they? Beyond even the UAE, we know that, China is complicit. We know that UK is complicit. We can even say that there's a pay to play happening, in the corporate warfare aspect of it. But yeah, if you could just kind of unpack that, the network there.
Yeah, so all major reporting and UN sources have confirmed that without the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, the RSF would not be able to operate. So the UAE is not only providing the bulk of the weapons to the RSF, but it is the operational hub of the RSF.
It's facilitating it. It's facilitating. Yeah.
And specifically, it is working with all of the neighboring countries of Sudan to bring in the weapons, the fighters, and the financing. and have set up, the century, many analyses and reports outline very specifically what UAE officials and corporations are involved within which countries, within South Sudan, within Ethiopia, in Somalia. Now they have they're using they're bringing in UAE paid fighters from Colombia through the Somalia airport, through the airport in Somalia.
That
And
happening in the north or south or both?
um,
Are they bringing it in through northern Somalia or are they bringing it in through southern Mogadishu? I
mean,
feel like I only know that because my
yeah.
my people are in the north, and I know that there's, like in Somaliland territory and Puntland, that there's definitely some influence happening over there as well from the UAE.
Yeah.
So
So specifically, there's a Middle East Eye article that outlines this. It's Bosaso, from
yeah,
Bosaso.
both sides. That's northern. Yeah.
That's right. And I want to be clear that this is not the people of these countries. This is the
Yeah,
government.
yeah. No, this is an operation. Yeah, this is
Mhm.
this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's the network. Yes, 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 yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
the people do have an obligation within these countries to speak out against their government's complicity, including the government that I'm in, the U.S.'s complicity, which
Absolutely.
the U.S. is one of the main complicit actors within this. It is sending the majority of the arms to the UAE. It is manufacturing arms here. This is the main manufacturing weapons hub that goes to the UAE. So we have to call that out, and we have an obligation within our respective countries to expose the complicity of our countries and challenge.
Absolutely. Which is the other step of it. The the what's really interesting is the UAE does not have an army, right? Does not have an actual military, right? Um, and it's it's so insidious. It's so insidious because it's using. Do you think that part of the reason why there is so much silence is because of the money circulating and the money that can be made and obviously where Sudan is situated and the gold but even so, in your work, in your experience with neocolonialism, do you see it as a direct line? And can you also just define a little bit of that neocolonialism, imperialism that is really behind all of this, but also is not easily detectable to the average person?
Yeah. So your first question was around. Can you? Sorry, I'm forgetting the first question.
Yeah. So the first was the oh now I'm forgetting it. So basically the unpacking, there's a neo-colonial systemic element to all of this, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of it works because like there's all these systems that are in place that keep this
That's right.
going and
I got it. Yeah. Yeah.
right. So and then tying that to well how that is manifesting in today's time because to the average person they think of colonialism or forget even neocolonialism but colonialism like wait what that happened a long time ago but these same forces are still very much alive.
Yeah, that's right, Sahara. So I think you're absolutely right in like spot on in your analysis around there are a lot of people making a lot of money off of the current destabilization of Sudan.
Yeah.
And this is, first and foremost, all of the weapons manufacturers and suppliers
Yeah.
throughout all of our respective governments that are that are profiting off of this, all of the corporate executives at all of these weapons manufacturing companies, those within the Trump regime that are having direct profits with the UAE deals, and all of those within the respective neighboring African countries that are also receiving kickbacks and deals from the UAE. So the idea of neocolonialism is that we that colonialism continues to operate, as Kwame Nkrumah highlights within his seminal work on neocolonialism, that it continues to operate in a much more covert manner than overt occupation of land. Neocolonialism may use counterterrorism operations, may use proxy militias, especially in this day and age. Rather than having your own military invade, why not hire a mercenary group, a security group, as the US likes to call them, security firms. And this is a much more prevalent type of warfare that we see in this day and age. And that's neocolonial warfare, because at the heart of it is an extraction of land and of resources. And that's exactly what the UAE's intention is in Sudan. It is to control the land, to control the agriculture, to control the foreign policy, and to extract the resources. And primarily for the UAE, that is gold. And so at the heart of what's going on in Sudan and what's going on throughout the African continent and throughout the global South is a project of neocolonialism and a colonial siege.
Okay. Real quick, what was really interesting is even in the spoken word, you'd mentioned you mentioned Colombia. It's in Latin America, and made me think of Cuba. It made me think of mercenaries, and I know that these rapid support forces are from all over. And these are men. These are just, regular poor men that are bounded by this poverty and circumstance, and most likely a conflict and unrest and instability in their own countries, right? In their own respective countries. You recently went to Cuba. Can you talk a little bit about your experience there as it relates to the neocolonial project, and what it meant being there, what that signified for you, at this time that, you as a Sudanese American is advocating for Sudan?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sahara, that we have to analyze the fighters specifically coming into Sudan, the mercenary fighters coming from all neighboring countries, and there's a lot of documentation of the UAE hiring Colombian mercenaries, actually through a U.S. Security firm, which we are looking into to challenge this particular corporate complicity, and the U.S. is overlooking of this, this direct role of providing fighters. So the Colombian mercenaries, the reporting, I would really encourage you all to go. They have spoken out on Colombian news sources to give direct testimony about what their family members and them, about how they got into Sudan. They were given a sum amount of around $10,000 to go to an undisclosed location and massacre the people, the civilians that they encountered. And they were told that they could do this with impunity. They were told that they could loot, they could commit sexual violence, whatever it was that
Anything goes.
Yeah, anything goes. That's right. And they weren't given a location. They were brought in through various UAE networks and placed in Sudan, and specifically within the past month, placed in North Darfur, which we're seeing a lot of videos circulating of. And they talk about how they the circumstances that led them to that point, of how they had no knowledge of what was happening in Sudan, of the plan of the higher ups within the RSF, of what this was for. And I bring all of this up not to um, uh, to remove these Colombian mercenaries from accountability, because I do think every person will face, whether in this life or the afterlife, accountability for what
Yes.
they have done in
Yes.
this world.
Yes. Yes.
But the focus on courts and on states and on international mechanisms should be those higher ups within the RSF, and those within the UAE that are making this all happen, those giving the orders, those giving the commands, and those making this possible through a network of financing, of arms, of fuel, and of
It's a
recruiting
corporation.
all of these
It's a
places. Exactly.
corporation. It's a
That's right.
corporation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these corporations must be held accountable, because right now they're not being held accountable. And they're operating in this way in order to avoid accountability. There's a reason, there's a very specific reason why.
And it's a neocolonial project
That's
because
right.
they're using countries that are, cut like it's not like you're using Americans,
Exactly.
you're not taking.
Yeah, they're exploiting the very real reality of
Mm-hmm.
neocolonialism, of completely destabilized lands, of lands in which we don't have representative leadership, because whenever we do, that leadership is killed or ousted.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the UAE has really paid attention to this and is exploiting this.
Absolutely. And your trip to Cuba, did it highlight the reality of that for you, even in modern day? Because obviously there's a history there
Yeah.
already, but yeah, was that stark for you and pretty loud?
Yeah. It was a very enlightening but sad trip.
Yeah.
What I saw is an extremely impoverished society.
Yeah.
Specifically, I wanna highlight why they're impoverished, because of U.S. sanctions. Because
Yes.
the U.S. highlighted within their within their documents, even stating this, that they would play the long game in Cuba because of the resistance to a U.S. imperialism. That the game in Cuba would be these long-term sanctions, with the eventual goal of people getting so fed up by the conditions in which they were living in that they would oust the leadership and oust call for intervention. And unfortunately, that is what we're seeing now. That there's many within Cuban society that
Mm.
are fed up of the conditions that they're living in, because they, at the heart of it all, we are human beings, and we live in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That we first need to get those basic needs of food, of security, of water, of all of these essential, of housing. We need these essential needs met before we can move on to political aspirations. And of course, this is the plan to exploit this, to starve a population out until they concede.
It's been generations.
Mm,
It's been generations.
mm,
There's such a there's such a complexity to all of this, right? And it's like I really appreciate your framing, and I think that's why the decolonized perspective is so important because it accounts for all of that we're not accounting for, what we can name and what we can't name. And I think when we do that, we are able to have these conversations in a more like spacious way, and we're able to humanize what's happening. Because what I'm hearing is people who are stuck in poverty, you know, because of imperialism, because of colonization, and a decolonization or repertory project that never happened. Um, and seeing, we can say that these people are acting out, we can say that they are at fault, we can say that they're not strong enough, but really the true monsters are at the top. And there's obviously many ways to get to it, but at least in my view, the best way to understand it is to be able to peel back the layers and say, okay, how did Colombia get to Sudan, and how is, Libya also complicit, and, what's happening in the United States that is connecting these dots. I think all of this is important. All of this is very, very important. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
And then the RSF, I just want to note really quickly because of recent news, the RSF is specifically trying to have these fall guys, the lower level fighters, to
yeah,
take the fall.
of
They
course.
had done this PR stunt of they jailed one of their fighters, Abu Lulu, in order to say it was him that we didn't have any knowledge in these orders that they were gonna annihilate the people of Fashir. We didn't know that it's this specific lower level fighter. So we have to push back on that and
Of
demand
course.
accountability at the top.